I had 7 hours blocked out for recording.
A Brechtian-esque episode, eh?
Yeah, it's actually we're just gonna do Mother Courage and her children.
Twice?
No.
Oh, just the one. Wow.
It's Baseball at the Corner. This is the Michigan in Trouble podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Jaconis.
Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast, joined as always by Luke Jaconis. I am Alex Freeman. We are here after another tough week of Detroit Tigers fandom. Outside of the Tigers' abysmal offense, Luke, how are you?
I think outside of everything, Detroit Tigers baseball related, I'm fine. Not too many complaints here. I had a nice weekend. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have. Can we just preface this by saying this is not going to be a positive show? If you're one of these people who watches or listens and is like, oh, I don't really like how they've been kind of negative lately, don't watch, don't listen anymore. We're not going to change the tune on this show until we see improvements from the team. So on that scale, you'll probably want to tune back into the show in the year 2029.
Or just fast forward to the parts where I'm talking, because Luke, I think I'm going to be the voice. I said this before we started recording, the voice of relax a little bit. Relax a little bit. It's a rough week, but the more and more I've been thinking about it, the more and more I actually feel positive about the place where the Detroit Tigers are, which sounds weird to say. And let me preface this by saying,
go ahead.
I understand deeply the frustrations of the fan base. Of Detroit sports fans in general, starting with the Tigers, charter member of the American League, last championship in 1984, and now coming up on a decade since the last appearance in a World Series. The Red Wings, an original six team, made the playoffs for over 2 decades straight. Last title, 2008. The Detroit Lions, since 1934, never been in a Super Bowl, last championship from the pre-Super Bowl era, and we're well over 50 Super Bowls at this point. Need I remind everyone? And then the youngest of the 4 major franchises is the Detroit Pistons, date back to 1957. So the young kids on the block, been around for over 60 years when they moved to the city from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Last championship, 2004. Then if you're a college sports fans on top of that, Michigan State basketball, though fairly dominant in the Big Ten, no championship since the year 2000. University of Michigan basketball, been close recently, only championship in that school's basketball history on the men's side, 1989. And University of Michigan football, Brian Griese was the quarterback the last time they won a national championship, which was 1997. So it's been quite a drought if you're a Michigan sports fan. And so to be sitting here with this team as they are, it's terrible.
Didn't you say you were going to be the voice of reason? That was depressing.
I know, right?
Sophie's Choice.
But here's the thing. Look at the contracts for the guys on this roster. Yeah, this roster can't hit right now, but you know what? They can all be gone next year. And we can start over. We're not hamstrung by anything at the moment, which does have me feeling positive about where things are. That like we can find the couple of guys in this group of clowns, and then we can add some more pieces. Other guys are coming up as they go through. Not going to make this season fun, but even in our predictions, right? Like have them winning more than 72 games. That's still a 90 loss team. even in the preseason thinking. I think that's going to be tough for them to do at this point. They're sort of racing against not being a 100-loss team at the moment, but pitching's going great. This is some of the best pitching we've seen since 2018.
That's not saying much either. I will say pitching has been very good. I don't know if I'm quite at the great level yet. Matthew Boyd has been great. I think we have seen at times Casey Mize look really good. Same thing with Tarek Skubal, Michael Fulmer. Spence looked good in his first start back this past week against the Pirates. We'll get to see what he does tomorrow as we close out the KC series. And then Urania has been good as of late. I will say pitching has been good, not great. Still, though, I get what you're going for here in terms. I was actually thinking about this today. If we had the type of pitching now in place of last year during the 60-game sprint season, could have been a pretty interesting storyline because the bats were working in the 60-game season for the most part. The issue was the starting pitching. It was the worst in baseball. So
yeah, I looked this up. The bats were the best last year. The bats were the best since 2017.
Yeah. So had you taken last year's bats with this year's pitching and put them in the last year's season, or even just into this year, who knows what could be going on. But that's as far as I'm going right now. And you made a lot of great points. And I understand what you're saying too. And these guys are on 1-year deals. Mm-hmm. If we don't like them, we can start over. I take onus with two things there. One, how many times are we going to start over? How many times are we going to start over? This is year 5 of a rebuild. And I think that's kind of the one thing I'm starting to notice with myself and a lot of other Tigers fans on social media. And it is a completely valid question. You're in year 5. Get your shit together.
I agree. I
wanna, get it together.
Yeah, I want to push back slightly on that though, because for 4 of those years, we were still just like dealing with big contracts on the books that were now. Yeah, the Illiches have a lot of money and they could ignore that problem if they wanted to. They've made it clear that they don't want to ignore that problem. And that's, I think we are reaching a point with them where we have to just kind of like the Oakland Athletics fan base, except that they're not going to open their pocketbooks in the way that some of these other franchises do. Now, that being said, that means we need a more creative general manager than one Al Avila we need Brad Pitt to come in and turn this franchise around.
I'll take Brad Pitt as the stoner stunt double of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I couldn't think of his character name, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, stoner Brad Pitt, who just takes his shirt off and drinks old-time beer in his trailer. He can be the new general manager of the Detroit Tigers. Here's the other thing, too, though. You said, like, we can try to figure out what guys that we have now can stick around and what guys don't. Alex, I don't think any of these guys, in my opinion, make the cut. The only 2 guys that I'm kind of like, all right, I have a whole list of people who I think are kind of on the bubble and should be fearing for their jobs. But let's just face it, they're not going to make anyone fear for their jobs because they play this game so scared, so timid. AJ Hinch isn't going to make the big move, which I think is ridiculous. You know, and when I say big move, I don't mean release Miguel Cabrera or anything like that. I'm just saying send down someone like Jacoby Jones. Send someone down like Jonathan Scope. Send a handful of guys down who are starters and make them feel uncomfortable. You know, demote Wilson Ramos, who is an absolutely atrocious defensive catcher. Bring up Jake Rogers, who is what we've heard is a great defensive catcher. Needs to figure it out on the side of offense.
You want to send down on a team that has no offense. You want to send down a guy who's like 3rd in the league in home runs.
Yeah, I do because you know what? What has he done? Sports in general is a game of what have you done for me lately? What has that guy done lately except not be able to frame a pitch to save his life? He is terrible behind home plate. I would much rather give Jake Rogers a chance up in the majors. The guy's been long due for a chance. He should have gotten an opportunity last year. He didn't. We know he can bring it on defense. Let him get in the majors and maybe he's, bringing up some of these guys. He's a spark plug. I'm not saying he would, or he might come up and be absolutely awful. He may or may not be. Same thing. Bring up Paredes, bring up Derek Hill, bring up Daz Cameron, bring up somebody, bring back Renato Nunez. I mean, it's just there is the issue with this team right now is no one is doing it. So I understand your argument in the sense that it's not like it's one or two guys where you can just kind of point your finger and be like, you got to get it together. All 9 guys are terrible right now. The only guy that I was going to say outside of Miggy, because they're not going to be able to get Miggy's contract off the books, and there's no way PR standpoint they would release Miguel Cabrera as he's approaching his milestones, nor would I want them to do that. Let's just make that clear. The only guy though right now that I think is kind of worth his weight in anything is Jamer. I think Jamer has earned some more chances than others. Willie Castro too. I'm not ready just to cast him off after what he had last year as he was contending for Rookie of the Year. But let's call it. Tigers, I think, played 57 games last year. Maybe it was 50. I don't even think they played the full 60. There was a couple of rainouts or makeups that never got made up. So maybe that was just a hot streak Willie caught at the end of the year. He's been awful this year. Everyone on offense has been awful. There's not one bright spot on this offense. You cannot convince me otherwise. Everyone is awful. And you can't just snap your fingers and get in 9 new guys. I understand that. So let's start making some moves then to do something.
Well, and I think
something has to be
start
done.
seeing some of those moves get made. But one of the issues there too is you got to think about the clock on some of these guys, some of these young guys, and obviously we don't like the manipulation of service time in general, but it is a thing to consider on a lot of these guys' contracts and deals. And so perhaps one of the issues we're facing right now is that it's April.
Yep.
And we got to wait before they make a move like that, before they say, okay, Wilson, it's not working.
Yeah.
We're going to bring up Jake and we're going to get Grayson some more playing time. Cause I think Grayson Griner's been doing pretty well behind
defensively.
Defensively, it's certainly been better.
Game. Yeah. He's been definitely better. Definitely better. I'll give him that. Offensively, he still is atrocious. He had one good game in Houston. Did I dream that this team swept the Houston Astros 2 weeks ago? Or was I tripping on acid, some sort of hallucinogenic drug? Because I cannot fathom that this team that I have watched now, that they swept the Houston Astros. It is, and not only that, some of the Houston Astros best pitchers made appearances in that series as well. Yeah, I got nothing for you, man. I got some numbers for you though, unless you got more points to make. I mean, I think we're fighting for the same cause here. I think we all are. Like and I appreciate you trying to see the positive. I really do. And again, I will tip my hat to the Tigers pitching. One thing AJ Hinch has said, and for the record too, I just want to make this clear because someone on Twitter kind of didn't give me pushback on it, just made a point, which I think was valid. Because I tweeted out, we always hear in spring training, oh, there's a new energy that's around this team that just has been lacking in the locker room for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Really? The team that just scored 12 runs in 6 games, there's a new energy around this team. Huh? Is that true? Really?
No one said it was no one said it was a good energy, Luke.
Oh, that must be what it is. But to that point, I don't want to go off on a tangent here. When I make fun of those players and those comments, it's not that I have that I've given up hope and faith on AJ Hinch. If you're a fan out there who's like, fire Hinch, fire Kulba, fire Fetter, you're not getting the bigger picture here. It's not on those guys. It's not at all. And I still think the coaching staff that AJ Hinch has assembled is really going to be something special for seasons to come. And we're already kind of seeing those early rewards here in the beginning of the season, because look at the starting pitching. You think Rick Anderson would be doing this? No. I think this is a direct effect with the kind of mindset that Chris Fetter has implemented with this pitching staff early on, and that's great. So my thumbs up and kudos go to Fetter, Hinch, all that stuff. I'm not even mad at Scott Kulba, the hitting coach. I'm really not. I'm not pointing the finger at him. Yeah. I'm pointing the finger at the upper management of Al Avila and Chris Illich, who they have played this game so scared. They have played this game so manila these last 4 or 5 seasons. And this is a direct result of what they have done to this team and to this organization as a whole. AJ Hinch can only put out the guys that he wants. It's not like AJ Hinch can reach into his pocketbook and go out there and make a trade for a guy like Mike Trout, Lindor, whoever you want to say in this fanciful hypothetical. My issue is not with the coaching staff at all. I think we are set there. My issue is solely with the team that is on the field, and that responsibility, all of that, the onus falls on the shoulders of Chris Ilitch and Al Avila. Al Avila, I have said it before, I will say it again, and I will say it as PG-13 as I can. That idiot needs to go. He has overstayed his welcome for 2 seasons. It is time for him to pack up his shit and get out. And here's the thing. I was thinking about this today, too. I'm getting ranty. I'm getting a little ranty, so bear with me here for a second. Here's the thing, too. One day, hopefully this Tigers team will amount to something. Hopefully guys like Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, Casey Mize, Tarek Skubal, Matt Manning, whoever they're going to get in the draft this year, whoever they're able to make a trade for, maybe here and there. Actually, let's leave trades off the table just for the sake of the argument and for the sake of the rant. Hopefully all those guys I mentioned eventually evolve into something. Hopefully at one point in time, a few years down the road, the Tigers amount to something to the point where they're contending for an AL Central title, they're contending for an AL pennant, and overall they're contending for a World Series. And maybe, just maybe, one day, they will win a World Series. As it stands right now, if that day ever comes, Al Avila gets 0 credit for doing that. His coaching staff will get the credit. I'm sorry, you don't get to tank on purpose for 5 seasons, get draft picks essentially handed to you in the first round, and think that you're a genius. You're a dunce. You're an idiot. You're a disgrace to the game of baseball. You're a disgrace to this organization, and you need to go. And Chris Ilitch is just a suit. That's all he is. This guy's a suit with a big pocketbook that he's too afraid to open. Chris Ilitch probably makes when Chris Ilitch first started dating his wife, he probably made her pay on first dates. That's how much of a stingy bastard this guy is with the money. So both those clowns, they get 0 credit if and when this team ever wins a World Series. Period. Rant over.
Speaking of trades, you tweeted about how you're not emotionally prepared for them to trade Matthew Boyd at the deadline. I think that will be the first real indicator for me of where they think the team is, because I think if you believe that we're 3 years, 4 years from a World Series.
Oh, World Series. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead.
Then I think you don't trade Matthew Boyd, because he can be a real anchor of your staff. He has proven that this year. He can be your 1 or 2 guy with Spencer Turnbull as Tarek gets his feet under him again, as Casey develops into a good rotation piece. And I'll come back to Casey Mize, because I think that there's way too many people talking about Casey Mize being a bust already. And I think they need to reassess how they're defining the word bust. And I think that that'll be the first real signal, because if you try and deal Matt Boyd to get prospects, to get a couple of bats, I don't know that you're really making that's not a we're going to win in the next 3 years move. That's we're still in the rebuilding phase as we make our way back up, as we assemble.
Also, do we even I know I just went on a rant about my disdain for Al Avila. I think our listeners and viewers at home probably are pretty clear where I stand with that man at this point in time.
You love him? Yep.
He's my best friend. He's coming over for dinner tonight. Do we even trust Al Avila with the responsibility of trying to get a somewhat decent haul in return for Matthew Boyd? Look at his trades up to this point. They've been terrible. They traded Justin Verlander and they have nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
Terrible. The only trade in my eyes that I'll give Al Avila a bit of a head nod and go, okay, I'll give you that one, is when they traded for Candelario in 2017. I think they gave away, that was Alex Avila and Justin Wilson, and in return they got Candy. That's a trade right now that I'm kind of like, okay, I like Candy. Again, like I said, he's one of the few guys right now in this lineup that I'd give a pass to. I want to see where he goes. Mm-hmm. Having said all that, Candy is still not elite, not by any stretch of the imagination. Candelario may be a starter for us right now. You put him on almost any other team in the majors, he's not even starting. That's honestly how I look at it. Yeah, I don't trust Avila to have the responsibility of trading a guy away like Matthew Boyd. And also, you bring up a great point too. You know, if this team says that by next season they're ready to start competing, which to that I say, good luck. Good luck. If this first month of the season is any indication, no, sir, you are not ready to compete for a championship.
Chris
year.
Ilitch is writing a lot of big checks if they're going to be competing next season.
He's not doing that. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what they do with Matthew Boyd, because I do think they will trade him. I think they will trade him. I just don't know what kind of haul they'll get in return for him. And I don't trust Avila with that. I don't trust Avila or Chris Ilitch at all. I don't think Chris Ilitch cares about this team one iota. I don't mean to be disrespectful with this comment, but if Mike Ilitch could see what his son has done to this team, he would be appalled. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about someone who loved not only the Detroit Tigers, but the city of Detroit? It was Mike Ilitch. He was a hell of an owner, hell of a human, you know. And well, I guess it's probably not fair for me to judge Chris Ilitch on his morality as an owner for this team. He is abysmal. He is a joke, and he should step down immediately. But that's never going to happen. So I don't trust either of these bozos making moves from here on out. But it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, because I don't trade Boyd. It's going to be like, how could you not trade Matthew Boyd after this season? He's been having blah, blah, blah. They do trade Matthew Boyd, then you're almost at the mercy of these two idiots trying to get something back in return for Matthew Boyd. I don't want to see Matthew Boyd go. I don't, but it's a mess right now. This is such a mess. The only reason I'm still watching games right now, other than the fact that we do this show and everything we're trying to accomplish with, you know, our podcasts and the social media and everything, is the starting pitching. Other than that, there's no reason for a Tiger fan right now to be tuning in. This is the first time, and I say this wholeheartedly, I'm usually really big on like loyalty. Watch the team even when they're good, because then when they're great, it's going to feel like it was all worth it in the long run. If people told me right now they stopped watching, I wouldn't blame them. There's been a few times I'm not joking today. When the seventh or eighth inning rolled around, as soon as Kansas City scored a run, I said, that's it. And I'm not even joking. That's how bad this offense is. They just, I don't have confidence in them to go out there and score one run right now. That's how bad they are. And I'm not kidding when I say this. I went, as the top of the eighth was going on, I went and folded laundry and cleaned my toilet. I got some chores done because I was like, doesn't matter. This is all irrelevant. It doesn't matter. This team doesn't have it on offense.
No big rally coming. Yeah. And I mean, well, you know, my greatest hope for the Detroit Tigers as a franchise is that one reason that Ilitch has been so tight-fisted is that he's looking to sell.
I hope, man.
That's the only thing I can hope. Now the question becomes, do they then also sell the Red Wings? Do they also
sell Little Caesars?
They're making some moves into Atlantic City casinos. The Ilitches are. Meanwhile, Dan Gilbert is making moves into further investing in the city of Detroit. That would obviously be the dream scenario for me, is that Dan Gilbert ends up owning the Detroit Tigers, because that man likes to win a championship. And that's what you want in an owner. I want an owner who looks at their professional sports franchise, not as a business, but as something that they brag about to their other billionaire friends. And they show off how many rings they have. That's what I want out of an owner. I want
it's not a bad philosophy.
Ridiculous payrolls that don't make any sense on paper, but they can laugh about winning the pennant on their yacht. That's what I want.
And I know some people who might be listening or watching right now could be like, well, you know, Mike Ilitch, a reason why now the Tigers are kind of handcuffed in terms of salary and payroll and whatnot is because of what Mike Ilitch did with the team. And it's well noted. Mike Ilitch, he spent a lot of money on a lot of players. And because of those moves he made in the early 2010s, there have been some repercussions even till now. But here's the thing. To me, even though, some of those signings were pretty ludicrous at times. I mean, the Jordan Zimmerman contract, woof. As it stands right now, we love the guy, future Hall of Famer. The Miggy contract, woof. I at least took those contracts as a conscious effort on his part to win.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
and they came close. They came very
and
close.
They came very close. And I know it's like, if and buts were candy nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. But at least Mike Ilitch put forth an effort to try to bring a championship to the organization and to the city. I don't get that vibe at all from Chris Ilitch, not whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that's why I get so frustrated with him. And I guess here's the thing. And I know I really didn't expect this episode to turn so much of us pointing the finger at Avila and Ilitch, but I mean, realistically, who else is there to point the finger at, given how this team has played thus far? It's going to be hilarious in the month of May when the Tigers go on like a 16-game winning streak and we predict them to win the World Series. I can't wait. We're going to look like idiots in retrospect.
I would love to look like an idiot in that sense.
Hey, I say it all the time, man. I will be the first person to bash a player, a coach, an owner, whatever, a team, whatever it is. At the same time, if they make me look like an idiot, I will gladly give them their due. Make me look like a fool. I am a fool. I don't sit here and pretend that I know everything about sports, about baseball, about all that stuff. I'm semi-competent, but I don't know all the answers, all the tricks and tips. Make me look like a fool, and I will gladly tip my cap to you and say, you got me. Thank you for proving me wrong. As it stands right now, though, all we can do is bash and shake our head. But I guess what I'm kind of getting at here with Ilitch, we're going to really know, in my opinion, soon where Chris Ilitch stands with this team. Mm-hmm. Is he trying to win, or is he just trying to save some cash? Because in my eyes, next to going out to this offseason and signing some big free agents, trying to make some trades, which is what he said he is willing to do this upcoming offseason, the first move that must happen, Al Avila's got to go.
Yep.
If you're serious, if Chris Ilitch is honestly serious, put your money where your mouth is, Chris. The first move you make this offseason, or maybe even before the offseason, you fire Al Avila. You do that, then I'll go, okay, let's give this guy a shot here. Maybe, just maybe, there's something going on. But until he does that, and if he goes out there and extends Avila or re-signs him, hell hath no fury like a Tigers fan scorn. I think people will revolt against this team. It will get nasty. I truly believe that.
Well, I think we said, coming into this year that this was really, really, really a make or break year for Al, to see if his philosophy was working, if the way that if maybe he was assembling things that we didn't know. There were some things in here that there were a couple of deals in here on these one year guys that we were like, this could be sneaky good. This could be something and none of them have panned out. So yeah, I think it's just, it's broken. In the make or break scenario, it was break for Al Avila. And so now it's time to move on and go find ourselves another GM that is going to work tightly with AJ Hinch. And they can build what Hinch was able to build in Houston. Now, obviously, when Hinch came into Houston, the Houston Astros team that he inherited was better than this Tigers team. But it still took 3 years in Houston for them to win that World Series. Yeah. So that probably puts us on a 3 to 5 year timeline if AJ Hinch is able to build in the way. Now, the only other thing I will say about this roster and the hitting is that maybe, just maybe, and I've seen no indication which would make me think that this is true outside of my own head, is that Scott Coolball has them making adjustments that is long-term going to be better for them, but right now is hurting them. Like a golfer improving their swing.
Yeah.
It definitely gets worse way before it gets better because they're trying to implement something. And so they're in their heads at the plate and all that stuff. Hopefully that's happening. Or perhaps he's just not as good at whispering the small improvement while working the long improvement as a guy like Chris Fetter is. And that's why we've seen this kind of instantaneous improvement in the pitching that we haven't seen in the hitting. And in fact, have seen the hitting take a step back.
But I think while that is a valid point, I think also there's just more talent on the pitching side than there is the offensive side.
Also very true. Very
I think that's
very true.
I mean, you've got some great young bucks coming up with Mize and Screwball. I know. Yeah, I think Michael Fulmer's been really solid this year, and it's nice to see. And again, here I am. I'm practicing what I preach. I kind of talk some dirt on Michael Fulmer going into this season. Kind of like I just don't really. I kept saying I think Michael Fulmer is like that feels like so 3 years ago, but he's really kind of made a nice little resurgence as of late, and that's awesome to see. And I think it's because he's always had the stuff. I think he's kind of bouncing back in terms of velocity and speed, which is great. And then also you add in a really solid mentor with Chris Fetter. I think it's just kind of a really nice thing that's flowing and kind of going together. And I think, again, the pitching has been good. That's why I'm really still watching games at this point, is because I'm genuinely excited to see what a lot of these pitchers are going to do. I guess we haven't talked about the Matthew Boyd game, but I mean, I'm just so happy for him. Like, and kind of bringing it back to the conversation we just had a minute ago about, do we trade him at the deadline? Do we not? How's that all going to unfold? I mean, it's going to be hard because I've been a huge supporter of Matthew Boyd. He was really bad last year. The year before that, he was kind of whatever. This year, he really seems to kind of have it all together. We've talked about it all the time about how much of a good human being he is off the field. And it feels like a situation where you don't always see it in life, sports, whatever the case may be, where it's like a good thing is happening to a good person. And now there's a good chance that good person is going to leave. So yeah, it's I don't know. I have very mixed emotions on it. I don't really have a final thought one way or the other. Like, my brain side of me says it's probably best if he goes, A, for him so he can go win a championship, B, but then I go back to my point. I don't trust Avila to trade him. I don't think he has it in him to get the right pieces. So I don't even know about that. But then also, when I'm thinking with my heart, it's like, I don't want to see him go, because eventually you think this team is going to start to get it together in some way, right? And I want him to be there when that happens. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, like I would thinking towards the trade deadline, I would rather see them trade a guy like Michael Fulmer, who I think could become like an okay piece in somebody's bullpen, could be that spot starter that you may need as you come into the 7-game series of the playoffs. If you're a playoff team, as you come into that spot, Michael Fulmer could kind of fill a lot of those pieces if he continues to throw like he's been throwing. But I don't know that like we're giving up kind of the future if we get rid of Michael Fulmer and don't get a whole lot back from it. Like, if we just get some prospects that are good bats for Michael Fulmer, that would be a nice little trade that I think could be good. And we're not going to, I like Michael Fulmer. He's doing fine, but I'm not going to miss Michael Fulmer.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's a good dude. But I mean, it's a conundrum right now. It's just a conundrum. I just want to. I know we're kind of all over it, but like I said in the beginning, this is going to kind of be a negative-ish episode. So that's just how it is. But look at these numbers, man. These are terrible. So taking in the last 6 games into account, the 3-game series when Pittsburgh came to town, the first 3 games of this series, obviously the finale is tomorrow, or I guess today, recording on a Sunday. They've scored 12 runs in 6 games. They have struck out 60 times in 6 games. They have walked 8 times. Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, those are your offensive struggles right there. I mean, and I know the Royals have good pitching. That Brady Singer, Matthew Boyd pitchers duel on Saturday was pretty fun to watch. But while Kansas City, I think, has okay pitching, they just don't look. They don't, and this is sounding like such a dad thing to say, but they don't have any fight right now. I would love to go to Comerica Park, which is ironic because I almost was considering flying up to Detroit this last weekend of April to go see these games. I'm so glad I did not. I just feel like everything is dead with this team, with the exception of the starting pitching, like we've made mention of. I just feel I'm so curious to like what the atmosphere is in Comerica Park. I don't even know if I'm hearing fans boo on the broadcast. I just don't know. I was hoping at one point in time, this is a kind of an old school mentality as well. I was hoping AJ Hinch would go out there and get rung up, get tossed out of a game, something that lights a fire under your guy's ass. He just seems pretty monotone. It's just like the whole thing, everything just feels so lethargic with this team right now. Again, other than the starting pitching, that I don't even really know where to begin and like try to dissect it all. But I can tell you right now, 60 strikeouts in 6 games, that's probably a good place to start. That's a good place to start. And again, I'm not pointing the finger at Scott Coolbaugh. I'm pointing the finger at the lineup, a lineup that does not have the talent, which again, in turn, goes back up to the top with a gentleman named Avila. So just for what it's worth, if you're a numbers fan, those are some numbers. 60 strikeouts the Tigers hitters have had in the last 6 games. They've walked 8 times. They have scored 12 runs in 6 games.
On that note, let's go to a break.
Okay. And then when we come back, I have some hypotheticals for you. And I know you, although I didn't go to a Tigers game this past weekend, you are about to.
I'm about to. So yeah, we'll chat about that on the way back.
Great.
We'll be right back. We are back on the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. Luke, a bit of a downer on our way out. I don't know that it's going to be great fun the rest of the way, but hopefully as we kind of look ahead to this coming week, I know I'm excited about this coming weekend. I live in New York, and so the Tigers are coming to Yankee Stadium for a 3-game weekend series, and I will be at that game. So I'm excited about that. It'll be fun to be back in a baseball stadium. Haven't done that in quite a while. But you also had some hypotheticals. So where do you want to go first?
Yeah, just some hypotheticals, some ideas I'd like to get your thoughts on obviously, if anyone's listening or watching, and if you have ideas on kind of these things I'm about to bring about, feel free to message us, leave a comment wherever you're watching this or listening. Just shoot us an email, whatever you want to do to interact with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Mm-hmm. So I made mention this already at the top of the show. Wilson Ramos is bad behind home plate. He is a really bad defensive catcher. And while I understand the point you made earlier, Alex, for a team that is scuffling, would it make sense to demote the guy who leads the team in home runs? I honestly wouldn't care at this point because the entire team is scuffling. I don't feel like if Wilson Ramos was crushing it offensively but was terrible behind the plate, I'd say, well, we got to figure out a way to keep his bat in the lineup. He's got to stick around. But since he's not really doing either at this point in time, I'm serious. And maybe it's because I'm a bit of a Jake Rogers fan. I feel like he's kind of been given a bad batch of goods thus far. I would love to see Rogers get a call up. He cannot do any worse offensively than anyone else on this team at this point in time. That's my argument. While I know he may suck on offense still, at least let him get up there and bring something to the table in terms of defense, because Wilson Ramos is a liability behind home plate. He is horrible at framing pitches. It is mind-boggling. I don't think I've seen him throw out a runner yet this season. Maybe he has, but I sure as hell can't remember it. He is really bad behind home plate. And when he was hitting home runs a few weeks ago, I was like, well, okay, at least he's doing at least 50% of the game right. Right now, he's not doing anything right. I will say this, though. He did have maybe an insanely long single today on the Sunday game. That ball that bounced off the left field wall right to Benintendi, that was an incredibly long, just base hit single, but that's just kind of how it's been going for the Tigers right now. Mm-hmm. So just kind of, I don't know if you have any thoughts more on that. I know we talked about it at the beginning, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, my suggestion of leading the team in home runs was a bit tongue in cheek because I can't recall the last time he hit a home run. I don't remember what date that was.
It was in Houston, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think that feels right. And so, what have you done for me lately? Except hit a very, very long single that couldn't bring a run in. So
yeah, that's fair. This is kind of another hypothetical. I'm a huge fan of the show Succession right now on HBO. I don't think you've watched that yet, Alex.
I have not yet. Yeah.
For those of you who may have watched it, the main character, Logan Roy, played by Brian Cox, hell of an actor. He talks a lot about how he needs a skull, especially in the second season. I don't want to spoil it, but he says, I need one meaningful skull. If you've watched the second season of Succession, you'll know what I'm referring to. who is the first guy? Who is this first skull, let's say, for the Tigers offense, as they use the term in succession? Who is going to be the first guy that kind of gets chopped? You got to go. So is it a guy like Jacoby Jones, Jonathan Scope, Robbie Grossman, Victor Reyes? Is it a pitcher, Wilson Ramos, maybe a Willie Castro? In my opinion, I think you're looking at, I think right now a guy who is kind of, the first two guys I think are going to be Jacoby Jones and Jonathan Scope, maybe Victor Reyes. Grossman has another year on his contract, which is funny to say. So, I mean, I guess they could eat it, but whatever. I don't see them kind of throwing Willie Castro overboard, nor would I like them to at this point in time, although I think he's had an abysmal season. He's really bad in the infield as well. He is really bad. And I'm going to kind of get to some infield talk here in a little bit and positional talk in a second. But do you have any thoughts on that, Alex, of someone you think who you could see getting the boot here pretty soon, whether it's just being straight up released, it's just not working out, or being demoted to AAA? My eyes, I think you're looking at a guy like Jacoby Jones, Victor Reyes, or Jonathan Scope.
I would tend to go Victor Reyes just because he is the greater defensive liability. To me, obviously, Jacoby's got speed. Jacoby's in general, I feel pretty comfortable with Jacoby patrolling center field. I wish his bat worked. I wish he brought a bat with him to when he goes to the plate. But like Victor Reyes has the speed, but I'm not always confident he's going to make the catch. And then if he makes the catch, obviously we can't always be confident he's going to make the right throw.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my, and that could be another potential trade option for a team that needs a little speed in the base path, because he is.
Do you think people are gonna trade for Victor Reyes? Are you insane?
We've unloaded worse before. I don't know. I'm not saying
we'd have to pay someone to take him at this point.
Maybe that's what we'll do. I don't get him out of here.
It pains me to say this, but Jonathan Scope might be. I think he might be it might be time, because he can't do it on defense and he's not hitting now. One argument I've heard about Jonathan Scope, and I don't know how much longer I can entertain this, is that he, out of everyone, started the season the latest because he had COVID protocol. I guess technically it was Spence because he just came back this past week. But in terms of guys on the offensive side of things, Scope was the last to kind of report to camp due to some. I don't know if it was either a COVID issue or a visa issue.
I think it was a visa issue.
I think it was a visa issue as well. So people are kind of like, well, he showed up to the camp 2 weeks late. Like, what do you expect? His timing's not down. Okay, that's fair. But we're almost a month into the season, and he's not hitting his weight. So how much longer are we going to run with that? And I think also another area where Scope is kind of screwed, maybe not screwed, but like Paredes is waiting. All it would take is for them to be like, sorry, Scope, you got to go. And you might be like, well, then what are they going to do at first? Because Miggy can't play first all the time, which is fair. But then you could call up a guy like Renato Nunez. Yep. Or you could move Jamer from third to first, which I'm not really too big on, for the record. I've made that clear in the past. And then you could put Paredes at third. You could just try Isak Paredes out at second, which is something they did a lot during spring training. So I just think Scope's time is rapidly kind of coming to an end, and you could rewind the clock, because 2 months ago, you and I were singing his praise when we heard he was coming back. We thought it was a great idea, and how could you blame us? He had a really nice, solid 2020. But as I've said before, sports, baseball in particular, I guess all sports in particular, realistically, are a game of what have you done for me lately? And lately, Jonathan Scope has just continued to squander every opportunity. But again, it's not like Jonathan Scope is the reason for this offensive just complete wheels falling off situation that we've seen as of late. He's just one of the guys. So I think you could see him kind of getting the boot here.
I think I'd be more interested in seeing somebody like Willie Castro or Harold Castro in particular. Harold Castro's hitting pretty well.
For what it's worth,
for what it's worth. So maybe not him, but like I would rather see somebody like send Willie down give Jonathan a little bit of time back at second base. And maybe that is he is just a more natural second baseman than he is at first base. And this shift to first base is messing with his glove. And then bring up somebody like Renato Nunez, who had a great series in
Houston
and ended up going back down. And obviously, contracts are playing into that as well, because Renato Nunez is on a minor league deal.
Yeah.
And so I think I would rather see that kind of happen before we give up on Jonathan Schoop.
Yeah, and
I'm very close with.
And this isn't. Yeah, it's just it's what have you done for me lately? And there's just and it's not just Schoop. Nobody is producing. Absolutely nobody on this offense. You could put all their pictures on a dartboard, close your eyes, throw the dart, whoever it lands on gets sent down to AAA, and go, yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, that's where we're at right now. That's all these guys across the board are not producing. But kind of, you brought up an interesting point, which is my next kind of just idea to throw out there. Jack Morris mentioned on the broadcast that having players be super flexible in the field, could that be a reason why they're not producing then in terms of offense? Because there's every day there, maybe guys are worrying so much. Jonathan Schoop is worrying about having to make his 5th career start at first base, that maybe that's starting to distract from what he's doing when he goes up to bat. Same thing with Willie Castro. He's only made 4 or 5 starts at second base. Could that be something that's going on? The only guy right now on the team that has a clear cut position that he's going out there every day and he's the starter is Jamer at third. I mean, Wilson Ramos, catcher, I suppose. But even in the outfield, guys are getting shuffled around too. Grossman plays left, then he plays right. Jacoby's been in center, then he's gone to left. I mean, that's always constantly changing as well. So while I appreciate what AJ Hinch is trying to do, and how he appreciates, I know for a fact, loving the flexibility with his guys, and I think that is a good asset to have within your team. At a certain point in time too, is he doing too much? Mm-hmm. Is he throwing too much at these guys to be okay, maybe let's give them a little bit more comfort? That way, then maybe it'll translate to the offensive side of things. Again, just a hypothetical. I thought it was a pretty good point that Morris brought up on the broadcast for the Sunday game.
Yeah, I think I would like to I like that AJ is not been afraid to experiment with where guys are. I think I would like to see that start to transition, even if it's not Nico at short. It's against the White Sox, Nico at short. For these for these 3 games, it's going to be Nico at short. This is the alignment against the White Sox. And then maybe we make a change again when we go start a new series, when we have a new prep for a new team. We can then prep a different position. I think that's what I would like to see it start to transition to. And then I eventually get to a more consistent lineup, because I agree with what Jack was saying on the broadcast about the Royals lineup. One of the strengths that they have is that just here's these 5 guys that what order they're hitting in. They know where they're playing. They have all their timings down because they have learned how to throw to each other in those moments. And that's one of the things that we've definitely talked about in the not turning double plays is part of the reason that these guys just don't have the rhythm together. They don't know where the guy's going to be just naturally. They don't have that history with each other in these combinations.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think you're right too. Maybe that's why also defensively they're off, as we've kind of mentioned. I mean, this team can't turn a double play, and they're into year 5 of a rebuild. There is a lot of issues with this team overall, but we've made mention of that. And my final little hypothetical for you: 5 games left in the month of April. Any shot at all, the Tigers can get to double-digit wins by the end of the month. They got 1 more against Kansas City, 3 against the White Sox, and then 1 game in New York. 5 games left in the month. They've got 7 wins on the season, and they're 7-15 right now, 8 games under 500. What do you think? Can they do it?
I think.
Can they get 3 out of these next 5?
Yes. I think they will win Monday against Kansas City. mostly just because kind of statistically in baseball, one, it is difficult to sweep. It's harder to sweep a division opponent. And so just kind of all of those statisticky reasons, I think that they will find a win on Monday against Kansas City. The White Sox have been a little bit better than I thought they might be, but I still don't think they're playing great baseball yet. And I think that Tigers pitching has been pretty good, and guaranteed rate is an easier park to hit in. So hopefully that can help them bounce back some bats, especially coming off of a win against Kansas City. So I think they can get 1 or 2 in Chicago. And similarly, like the Yankees are starting to get it together, but they're not necessarily great. I think it will depend on who pitches Friday for the Yankees. And I'm not quite sure where they're at in the rotation. I haven't mapped that out yet.
I'm going to say they get to 9 wins. They're going to win 2 out of their next 5. I don't mean to sound so pessimistic, but I need to see it to believe it. And right now I have absolutely no faith, no trust, no expectations with this offense. I don't know at what point in time, Alex, we start comparing this offense to 2019. And I'm not being over dramatic when I say this, but I think that time is rapidly approaching. I'm going to give it a few more series. I'm going to maybe give it another week and a half. But this is very, very, very bad.
Well, Luke, you want a statistic?
Sure.
2019, the team OPS was 683.
Okay.
Currently in 2021, coming into today, the team OPS is 634. So
we're a little bit better.
At the moment, we're looking a lot like 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but here's the difference between now and 2019. Starting pitching is way better, which is great. I mean, again, this is, I don't know. Did I mention? I know we've been all over the board today, but AJ Hinch mentioned that he wanted the identity of this team to be pitching. So far, so good. So I guess that's kind of a little bit of a positive spin for me.
Because that's the thing too. Like there have been certainly some blowout games this season. But lately the Tigers have not been getting blown out of games. They're losing games. Like obviously they lost by 4 today, but those were 2, I would call late inning runs that are just going to happen.
By that point in time, we all knew it was over. It didn't matter.
Yeah. And even losing a game like 4 runs with a couple late inning runs added on is not an unusual thing in baseball. And I would not call that a blowout win by any means. No. We haven't seen that really. Lately.
And then I want to come back to you on this because you've mentioned, I don't think you got into it. Maybe this will be your turn to rant. I don't know if the people have ever seen you rant. They've seen me rant. They've heard me rant. But I don't know if they've ever seen a Freeman rant.
At this point in the episode, they've definitely seen you rant.
True. And then kind of in terms of, I don't consider what happened to Casey Mize on Friday night really like a blowout. I mean, he was pitching well. Offense was never going to back him up to begin with. He had 1 rough inning. And he's still, guys and gals, again, and I'm going to kind of kick it back here in a second. Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize have not even pitched a full year in the majors. I'm going to be a lot more lenient with guys like that than someone who's a quote unquote veteran with his team like a Jacoby Jones, or someone who's just been a veteran in the major leagues for many years like Wilson Ramos. I'm going to point my finger at those guys a lot sooner, like, what are you doing here? Like, get it together than I am a Mize or a Skubal. So I'll kick it back to you. You had some choice words you felt like for people who are saying that Mize is a bust. Thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. Somebody tweeted out the chart of first round pick pitchers ERAs through their first 11 games, and Casey was near the bottom of that list. Okay, but also like on that list with not great ERAs were guys like Trevor Bauer and Shane Bieber, and it's if Casey Mize does not become the ace of this staff, but is a hyper strong 3rd or 4th guy in the rotation, that is not a bust by any means necessary. We talk about, we've seen great staffs have the equivalent of 4 aces, guys who would be an ace if they went anywhere else. And Casey Mize can develop into that, or he can be your second guy in the rotation, your third guy in the rotation. You need at least 4 great starters to win a World Series. And you probably want 5. And so if you're in that spot, like, we just want Casey. I just don't want to feel bad when we hand Casey the ball. And he's nowhere near that. Mostly he's getting tagged by home runs at the moment, and that's okay. He's got to figure out how to pitch around that. He's got to figure out a little bit more of how to utilize his pitches around guys, because he can't just fan guys up here like he could in the minor leagues. And he's gonna figure that out. Now, unfortunately, like in spring trainings and stuff, he was pitching against a lineup that can't hit fastballs anytime. And so he was still able to rely on that fastball, and the other pitches didn't need to develop in a way. And some blame comes back to the catchers as well. What is the order that they're calling pitches in? To help him get through those situations, and he's doing fine. He's not. I still don't. I'm not like, oh well, Casey's starting and chalk up a loss. I'm. The Tigers are going to try and chalk up a loss, and show me Casey Mize losing in games where he's actually getting run support, and I can start to entertain some of those concerns.
And again, he hasn't even pitched in the majors for a full year yet. So even if we get to those,
it's 11
starts.
He's got 11 starts.
It's way too early. Way too early to close down shop on guys like Mize and Skubal. You mentioned, he's had a lot of issues with the home run ball as of late, which he has. I'm not joking around here. Just talk to Matthew Boyd. For many, many years, that was Matthew Boyd's Achilles heel. And this year, I think he's given up 1 home run in 5 starts, something like that. Now, I'm not saying Matthew Boyd is, completely cured of that. I'm sure Matthew Boyd will struggle at some point this year. It's bound to happen. But as it stands right now, he's really been able to erase that part of his game, which has been great for us. So it might be something worth mentioning for Casey Mize. Again, the pitching core, I feel confident. Just the offense. So just the offense. Yeah, look, we've done
just the other side of the ball.
The other side. The other. I mean, geez, at this point, we just give like at bats to Mize and Boyd and Fulmer and everybody else.
Looking at this Tigers team, I'm coming around to letting pitchers bat, because it can't be.
Can't be much worse. Can't be worse.
Yeah.
All right, man. What else you got?
Well, we don't have projected starters against the White Sox. We don't have projected starters against the Yankees, mostly because we're still in the middle of a series. So let's, to close this out, I'm going to Yankee Stadium for the first time in my life to see the Tigers and the Yankees. I will be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If anyone out there listening is also going to be at the game by any chance, please reach out. Love to, give you a little elbow bump in the stadium, commiserate with you, celebrate with you as we come in and shock New York by sweeping the Yankees. And if we do sweep the Yankees because of my presence, obviously we'll start the GoFundMe to get me to every single Tigers game.
It's true.
Along the way. So Luke, my question to you, when you go to a stadium for the first time, what kind of traditions and things do you make sure you do as you head in?
That's a good question. I was gonna tell a joke, and I had a joke here and geared up. My joke was gonna say, first thing I do is I run onto the pitcher's mound and dry hump it. But I just, I didn't feel confident in it. I'm just not in joking mood. Although I gave you the inner workings of what the joke would have been right there, I just didn't feel like committing. I didn't commit to the bit. To be fair,
if this was original Yankee Stadium, I would not do that. That's pretty hollowed ground. But this is fake Yankee Stadium.
This is fake. This is fake. Fake.
Why
Yankee.
not?
Okay, so for real, that just was a complete waste of 40 seconds, that whole thing right there. My traditions I usually do are kind of twofold. So for the record, although I love watching the Tigers play in person, when I try to go to new stadiums, I really kind of make a conscious effort as of late to go when the Tigers aren't playing, because I find myself just to be more relaxed and enjoying it, rather than if the Tigers there, I'm more into to what's actually happening on the field. Go figure. A guy goes to a game and is super curious and into what's happening on the field, not worried about what's going on his phone when his team's playing. Bizarre. So just kind of prefacing this whole thing by that. So for me, though, I always like to do kind of like a lap around. I like to first go to my seat, see like where I'm going to be. I always get there early. I'm not one of these people who shows up in the third inning, be like, oh, the game's already begun? Oh, bizarre. How bizarre. I like to get there early, check out my seat. Then I'll go kind of do a lap around, probably get a beer, get a hot dog before the game starts, get back to my seat, watch the first few innings, depending where the game is, how the game's going, whoever's playing. Then I'll probably get up, do a couple food runs. I'll probably usually make 2 or 3 beer runs within a game, a couple hot dogs. I always try to get the signature food at the stadium I'm at. So that's kind of my mentality as well. And again, it's different too, depending on who's playing. If the Tigers are playing, I probably won't get up as much. I'll try to be more selective when I do make those concession runs, etc. But if it's just kind of I'm not really into either team is playing, I'm just there for the experience, to see the stadium, to enjoy the game. I'm a little bit more liberal, I guess, in terms of just kind of taking the time to go explore the sites, which is kind of going to be what you're doing, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, I will definitely Friday night, we'll kind of, after work gets over, head over pretty early before the first pitch of the game, just to kind of take it in, get the seat with a little bit more, knowing that I will be there for all 3 games. There's a little bit less pressure of needing to do it all on Friday night. And so, well, if you take that in, now here's my other question for you, because you did mention the food runs, and that's obviously something harder to calibrate in a baseball game, because you don't get the end of the quarter. So we've got a minute left in the quarter. I'm going to go now. Probably not a lot going to happen here that you might have at a basketball game or a football game, or heading into those half times and dealing with that. Do you tend to make your runs? How do you decide which half inning you're going to kind of make that run in?
I'll more often than not. Well, it's funny given how much we've bashed the offense today, and rightfully so. When I've gone in the past, I would usually go while the Tigers are on defense and pitching, because I'm like, well, if this is the part where I'm not as interested, because I know it's not going to bode well for us. If I was going to a game in 2021, I'd probably be sticking around for the pitching and getting up when the offense is hitting, because I'd be like, I'm not going to miss anything, just a couple of strikeouts and horrible at bats. So why not go get a hot dog?
That is probably my philosophy going in, is that I will watch the pitching. And then if Miguel Cabrera is not coming up in the next half inning, I will go.
He's the one guy out of respect. I'd be like, okay, even if he's only hitting like $120 or whatever, at this point, I'm like, I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer. He could be witnessing some history. What if he hits 12 home runs
in this game?
It'd be crazy if he went on a homer streak. 12 home runs in 1 week would be pretty gnarly, but hey, you could be seeing, seeing history. Even
more wild, Luke, is if he hit 12 home runs this week and they didn't get to 10 wins.
It could happen, man. It could happen. You brought up a really good point too. If you going to all 3 games this weekend, you have a much more laissez-faire kind of itinerary ahead of you. You can just kind of relax. You don't have to worry about it. When my pops and I did Busch Stadium in 2019, we were there for 2 nights. And that's a really good point you brought up. I never felt as pressured that, we got to go to the ballpark village, and we got to do it. Then we got to get the food. We got to get the drinks. We got to watch the game. I didn't have any of that. Didn't have any of that exact thing. I just did, ironically enough. But, when I've gone to kind of just day games or whatever, you're doing a one trip out of it. You're not only worried about driving however many hours it is to get to the stadium, then enjoying the game, then you have to drive home. So for you, it's nice because obviously going to the Yankee game and being a New Yorker, you can just get on whatever mode of transportation you're taking there, probably the subway or Uber, I'm assuming, go to the stadium, go home, and then do it again the next day.
That's right. It's about a 30-minute walk if I wanted to walk it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And then it's about, 12 minutes on the bus, depending on traffic.
I mean, I have you beat there. When I lived in Chicago for my year, although I'm not a Cub fan, I had it made in the shade in terms of I went to 2 or 3 Cubs games that summer, and I'm not joking, folks, that when I say if I had a ticket to the game, I could be in the stadium in 2 minutes. I lived right behind Bernie's Bar and Grill on Clark and Waveland, to the point where the stadium lights would shine in through my windows at night when I was sleeping.
I think there's a plaque there now, right? That
I used to live there.
Here lived Luke Jaconis, host of the Michigan and Trumbull podcast.
It's true. It's true. It does say that. It was always funny when we would watch games, if we ever watching the Cub games on TV, because there was always a delay, about a 10-second delay or whatever. So there'd be a lot of times we'd be sitting on the couch watching a game, and you would hear the roar of the stadium, and we go, oh, something just happened. And then 10 seconds later, whatever happened, what happened? It was always funny. So, yeah. I went to, I think, 2 or 3 Cub games that summer, the year I lived in Chicago. And, yeah, like I said, it was pretty awesome. Again, not a Cub fan, but if you're just a fan of baseball, to live close to a stadium, that's a pretty cool experience. And I definitely, if you're a diehard fan, especially of the game, if you're able to somehow pull that off in your lifetime, even if it's only for a couple of years, whatever it is, do it. It was a pretty neat experience. Every day walking to work and walking right by Wrigley Field. There's a couple of days I was running home from the gym, and I'd be like, oh, man, there goes Wilson Contreras as I'm finishing up my workout. He's just clocking in to go work. And one day I remember I was just out for a walk, and Ryan Dempster was like doing a segment for MLB Network, and I stopped and watched it for like a minute. Like, cool things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting to be just near the stadium on game day, and to live it. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, unfortunately, where I'm at in Naples right now, the closest stadium is Miami, which is about 2-ish hours away. And I tried to get tickets to go 2 weekends ago to a Marlins Giants weekend series, and I had every intention to go, but tickets were just outrageous, man. I couldn't justify. I had a couple people who were going to, they were going to go, they weren't going to go. So even if for some reason they could or could not go, I was like, well, I have no issues just going by myself. I mean, it's not a horrible drive. And especially if it's an afternoon game, I would just make a day trip out of it. But even for one seat, they were up in the nosebleeds, and they're like $60. And I was like, I'm not doing this $60 for Marlins Giants. And the reason it was like that was because of COVID. And they want you to buy tickets in a 4-pack. It was ironic. You would buy a 4-pack ticket, and the price per ticket was cheaper than if you just bought one ticket for yourself. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. So, but damn COVID still ruining people's fun.
But we're getting close. We're getting closer.
Yeah.
Closer and closer as we go.
Yeah.
Get your shot. Wash your hands. Keep washing your hands after you get your shot, because that's gross if you don't wash your hands.
Don't be so gross.
Exactly.
Can I say one more thing before we wrap? Well, first of all, good luck at the series this week. I hope it's a blast. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you are a good luck charm to the Tigers, because if you do, I will set up the GoFundMe to get you at every game for the rest of the season. And while, yes, on this episode, we were very negative, it is what it is with this team. And it doesn't come from a place of being bitter for the sake of being bitter. It's honest, raw emotion and passion, at least on my end. I love this team with all my heart. It sounds crazy, I'm a diehard fan to the point where they lose, and when they play like this, it affects me. Like, it affects me as a person. I know that might sound insane to someone, but that's how much love I have for this team. I love doing this show. You are one of my best friends, so I love getting to do this with you. And it sucks to see this continue to happen. Yep. It doesn't make me feel good. It pisses me off. And there are moments in time where I just want to scream and just like go punch a hole in the wall. I have never done that as a fan, so I'm good there. Don't think I'm that much of a psychopath. But I think hopefully people can understand where I'm coming from, at least when I get really riled up. It's not to be a dick just for good content or to be funny or for rant's sake. It's because it's how I truly feel. It's passion. It's raw emotion and passion and love. And, that's just kind of how I let it out. Love this team. I still think at a point in time, this team can get it together. I think there are pieces in play right now with the coaches, with the pitching, with maybe like 1.5 players on offense, I think could be here for the long term. And we just want to see it all come together, because I hate to be like, we deserve it, because it comes off as entitled. but we deserve it. I'm not even again, keep in mind, folks, as much as I love the Tigers, I'm not a Michigan native. I'm kind of like the friend in the family who gets invited to all the functions every weekend because I'm not a Michigan native. I've made it clear before when it comes to football season, I go back to Chicago and I root for my Chicago Bears. Not that they're much better by any means than your Detroit Lions, Alex, but we're kind of in the same boat. But even being a fan who's removed from Detroit sports when it comes to everything but baseball, I can acknowledge the city of Detroit needs a win drastically, desperately. And I feel like the Tigers can be that team to bring that win to the Motor City. But when we see them play like they have played thus far, you can't be upset with fans like us who expect more because it's time. So that's just kind of trying to end it on a little bit more sympathetic and compassionate note. But that's where I'm coming from. And if you don't like it, too bad.
Yeah. Luke, I couldn't have said it better myself. Hopefully soon we are.
Have fun at the game, man.
Celebrating like it's 1984.
You're going to get that milkshake?
I am leaning real hard. I think I will.
Take some pics, and if you do, send them to me, and I'll throw them on social media. They look good. It looks really good. I think I might make a milkshake right now, just for the hell of it.
There you go. Grab a milkshake, drink somebody else's milkshake.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it
to bandage these wounds of the last week that this Tigers team has inflicted on us. And hopefully things are brighter when we see you next week.
Let's hope.
Have a good one, Luke.
See you, buddy.